In this video of the Historic Ordnance series, we're going to look at a very old mine, actually pre-World War II, that was used through World War II. What you are seeing in the picture there is a Soviet TM-38 metallic anti-tank mine. Now, if you go off of the way the Soviets used to name their mines, it's a pretty good guess that this entered service in 1938. This actually was an improvement on an earlier mine known as the TM-35. They apparently made a few modifications to subtract a few parts that really weren't as necessary as they thought they were, simplify it for ease of production. This mine is also listed as the TM-35M when you try to find information for this online. Now, this mine was declared obsolete by the end of World War II, and it was officially replaced by the TM-46. This mine was then put into emergency wartime storage across the Soviet Union, but the vast stores of these mines were shipped out around the world to different little communist uprisings wherever they happened to be. When I tried to find lists of countries where these mines have been used, all I can find is stuff like used across Africa, used across the Middle East, used across Asia. But some of the countries that this has been used in include Russia, Ukraine, which these are being used right now by the Ukrainian military, and the ones that they have, these are some of them that were in deep emergency war stocks in the mines in Ukraine left there when the Soviet Union fell apart. They were also used in France, and those were mines that were captured by the German military and sent to the Normandy region and along the northern coast there. They were employed in Germany, reportedly by the German military and the Soviets. They've been encountered in Burma, Colombia, India, Thailand, Tunisia, across Africa. They were used in Iraq, Afghanistan, Egypt, and used heavily by North Korea in the 1950s. Now, some of the information on this. The width and length of the mine, because it is square in shape, is 8 5 inches. The height of the mine to the top of the pressure plate here is 3 1/8 inches. Total weight was 10.5 pounds, of which the explosive filler, as you see down here, was blocks of TNT, and it was around 6.5 pounds. The explosive blocks used in it were the standard Soviet 200-gram TNT block. The fuse that was employed with this mine was the standard MOV or MOV-1 series fuse, and reportedly the mine took around 500 pounds of pressure on the top plate here to deform it and begin deactivating procedure to set off the mine. Now, these mines are sheet metal, and they came in what was called field gray and also OD green, which the pictures you find online are typically OD green. Now, here's a picture straight out of a U.S. Army manual from the 1950s, right after the end of the Korean War. Now, how these operated, you have this bolt here on the top plate. It seems really out of place. Well, what that bolt is it comes down through the pressure plate, through I think what was called the top plate here, and then right below that they had a little, what they described as a seesaw mechanism inside this. On one end of the seesaw was the pin from the MOV fuse. The other end was the bolt. So when the top plate got crushed, the bolt would come down, push down on the one end of the seesaw, rising up the other end, pulling the pin from the MUV fuse, setting off the mine. Now, installation on this, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And this is straight from the U.S. Army from the 1950s, right after the Korean War. First, you're going to inspect an inventory, inspect the mine, make sure it is still usable. It may or may not have explosive inside. If there is no explosive inside, you had to include the explosive blocks in the inspection. But you're inspecting the mine body, you're inspecting the explosive, you're inspecting the MUV fuse, and you're also inspecting an MD2 detonator. If everything passes inspection, it looks like it's serviceable, it's usable, the explosive isn't leaking all over the place, you put the explosive inside the mine if it's not already in there, and then you take everything to the installation site. At the installation site, you are going to prep it. These mines reportedly were typically surface laid, hidden in the grass. However, they could be buried, and if they were buried, then the very top of the mine here was supposed to be just over the top of the surface of the soil of the ground. They wanted this just a little bit exposed, but not so much that it would give away the position of the mine. So you're going to dig the hole to just below the top of the pressure plate. Once you have the hole prepped and you have a nice firm surface underneath, you're going to first prep the MUV fuse. You're going to screw on the MD2 detonator onto the end. You're then going to open up the little fuse well cover here, which is located right below the handle. Just move it to the side, and you're going to insert the MUV fuse in there with the loop facing up, and you want to make sure that the loop is flat so that when you push it forward, that loop will engage with the narrowed end of the fuse activating lever. The fuse does not screw into the explosive, it just pushes right in. Make sure that the blasting cap is inside the explosive and the pull ring is around the activating lever here. Once that's inside, you've removed the safety pin and that stuff on the MUV fuse before you put it in there, removed the collar and that stuff so that everything will activate properly. You will then close the fuse well cover, put the mine inside the hole very carefully, and then you're going to backfill some dirt around it. And it said a very light layer of dirt over the top just for concealment. You could also go through, put some leaves, some grass clippings, that stuff, some straw over the top to conceal the mine. The mine is now in place. Now, as for removal, you don't. Everything I read from deminers and the U.S. military going back to the 1950s says, do not ever attempt to remove this mine. The reason being is far too many of them, an extremely large percentage, actually had modifications done to them for including booby trap devices. And that was included during World War II to kill German sappers. Some of the things that were done included placing a pressure release device inside the mine with part of it exposing through the bottom in a pre-made hole that when you tried removing the mine, it would go off. Another thing that would happen would be an additional MUV fuse was placed inside here into one of the other explosive blocks with the tripwire running through the bottom of the mine through a small hole tied off to a large rock or a log underneath. Now, because of the large numbers of booby-trap devices, the U.S. military said, destroy in place. Deminers, if they do come across these, which is a possibility in the Middle East because of the dry conditions, they outright say in there, just destroy it in place, do not move it to a disposal site because it is just too dangerous. Now, I did come across some information that these mines were improvised by guerrillas around the world also, but instead of making them out of sheet metal, they made them out of wood. But the basic internal concept and stuff about the seesaw and all that, a bolt going through or a large wooden dowel coming through to operate the seesaw, still the same thing. So there you go. A very recognizable mine. Soviets declared them obsolete at the end of World War II, put them in deep war reserve. They were used and are still being used today on the battlefield, which is surprising. And something I also found surprising is these mines are listed as being in the inventory of former Warsaw Pact countries. These mines are still there inside their arsenals, and my guess is maybe they sent a bunch of them to Ukraine to get rid of them, but I'm not sure. So there you go. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and militia movements, always remember, essay ons.